everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome. We are so glad that you are here. My name is Katie Gideon, and I will be the on-camera facilitator. Um, Basically, we are so glad that you're here. I am going to be the only one on camera, so don't worry. You guys get to get comfortable. So grab that October journal. Grab whatever you need to write with. If you haven't received your journal yet, don't worry. Grab some notes or sticky pad, any of those things to kind of jot those down and get all of the great, wonderful ideas. I also want to give a huge shout out to my co-facilitator who will be in the chat, Jennifer O. So you have the original Team Texas. We still call ourselves Team Texas, even though I have since moved out of Texas, but it will always be a part of my long line of places that I've lived. But we are so glad that all of you are here. We are so glad that you are joining us to set up your week, especially with it being one of the first weekends of the month, which is always exciting. But I also love seeing all of our returning socialers in the chat. You guys are amazing. You put a big smile on my face. I feel like I can't spend a weekend without you guys. And if I don't, then I don't quite have the same week, because we are the best group of accountability buddies that are out there. And then, as Jennifer did put in the chat, if you want to participate in the chat, make sure it is set to everyone. If it is set to just hosts and panelists, it comes to myself and Jennifer, and we will be able to answer some of those questions. But if you really want to kind of engage in the chat, we want you to make sure that it's just set to everybody. The other thing when it comes to these socials, so let us know if this is your first either weekly setup, maybe it's your first social ever, maybe it's your first social in a while, because we love to see all of our first time folks, but you guys are in great hands, especially with the returning socialers in the chat. But it definitely takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of kind of cadence to figure out how you want to do it. Maybe some of those days you just want to be in the chat, so you have that running. Maybe there are other days where you really just want to dig in and focus on your journal, so you're working on that. There are days where maybe I am just hitting all of the, not the right sounds that you're really wanting, or maybe the music isn't the vibe you're looking for. You can mute those, you can turn those off, you can do all of those things, because we are glad that you have come exactly as you are, and to work on whatever you want and whatever you need on your self-care journey. Because again, no one is going to come up behind you and check and make sure that you're, writing everything down, everything is done to perfection. We are breaking up with perfection, and we are moving away, because it absolutely comes down to how can we make this function for what we need for the week that we want to have ahead. So a couple of our community guidelines is please be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. We always ask to limit repetitive product and accessory questions. We do acknowledge that stickers want to be used here, so we do like a little bit of those things, but some of the more kind of in-depth kind of conversations around products and those type of things, the app is a great place for that. And as always, Jennifer and I have some information, but we really don't have anything around specific individual accounts when it comes to that. So we may direct your customer care inquiries to our team at hello@silkensonder.com. And then, as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. And that's what we love, because this is such an amazingly supportive community. So we want to be here to celebrate either the fantastic week that you had. We want to be here to give you that extra love and support if you need it when you didn't have the week that you wanted to have, and even everything in between. There is no such thing as, falling off or getting behind or not quite meeting expectations. Just take a big deep breath, because we get to start anew. And we embrace all of the feelings that come with it, but we are glad that you're here just as you are, and we are so excited to set up our week. So not only do we get to set up a new week, but we are still in the kind of beginnings of a new month. And I already love the fact that the month and the theme all start with the same letter. I'm a sucker for alliterations. There is something just comforting about it. So the fact that October is a opportunity is for the theme, I just think is fantastic. And opportunity is certainly one of those themes that I really, really like. I feel like it is one of those that is really tangible. but also one that you can take action on. And I love when we can kind of dig in and kind of feel all the feels that we have when it comes to the theme, but then turn those into actionable steps forward. So I really liked this particular quote with opportunities come not from waiting, but from seeking. And I think that's a really good attitude to kind of have for it is I like the idea of being able to kind of cultivate opportunities. I do tend to associate that a little bit more in kind of the work and professional setting. I've always found that that's where I'd certainly excel a little bit in with like kind of the networking and kind of building something or talking through where you want, your 5-year plan to be, your 10-year plan to be, kind of all of those things. So I feel like that becomes kind of a conversation about what opportunities do I need to either create or that are given to me so that I can kind of move forward with that. But then I also try to find ways to kind of seek things in just kind of the day-to-day life. I also love the idea of magic in ordinary days. And so sometimes that's, did I take a new way to work? Did I walk down a different street? Did I drive down a different path to get home? Did I listen to something new? Did I put my music on shuffle to kind of discover new music? So I do take all of those kind of small, even like special kind of things when it comes to opportunities. Also the same thing of like, if I try a new recipe, I am absolutely going to change it. So I feel like there's just kind of that magic in what you can cultivate when it comes to opportunities, but also just one of those, you still kind of need to do something. And it could be, again, a big, massive change, or it could just be a little, how do I find an opportunity to fill my afternoon? Well, it starts with me getting up and doing something. So I love that idea, and I love how we can kind of move forward with that, especially as we come to kind of the end of the year. This is the start of that final quarter, which completely, where did this year go? So the idea of being able to kind of build this kind of momentum as we move into those, the autumnal, the burr months, I think is really fun. So we are going to work on our opportunity mind map, which is unique to the weekly social setups. Then we're going to do our rosebud thorn reflection and then move into those weekly setup pages. So the opportunity mind map is a monthly mind map where we dive into the theme each week during the weekly setups. So this is not printed in your journal. You're going to find a blank page. It can be any blank page or any sort of blank spot. And we are going to use 4 different weeks to explore the theme of opportunity. And so what's great about these is you can look at it each week if you come back to the socials, but we always include the previous weeks. So if you show up a little bit late or kind of miss one, don't worry, it'll be there when you get there and you can always answer it. And then what's also really great about these is you can actually take the whole week to kind of explore it. And what I do like about kind of framing the start of these is that this can give you a focal point to maybe what you need to get done this week if you really don't have kind of a goal in mind for what you want your week to look like. So with that being said, the first week we're going to focus on under the theme of opportunity is educational opportunity. And so I'm going to give kind of the overarching prompt here, but then on the next slide, I have my mind map example, as well as a couple other ways to approach this kind of question or this idea of educational opportunity. So you can reflect on a time when you took a risk in your education, whether by studying something new, applying for a scholarship, or participating in a program. How did that opportunity shape your perspective, and what did you learn about yourself in the process? So here is my example. This is my mind map for the month of October. I've been really into this whole Vine kind of vibe. So I'm excited that now all of my months look like this, and it makes me really happy. But we're going to talk about, again, that educational opportunity. But not only can you explore from that the opportunity that shaped your perspective and what you learn about yourself in the process, but I also want to remind you that it does not need to be formal education or formal schooling. This could be just learning a new skill, trying a new hobby, or even stepping outside of your known comfort zone. And a couple other ways I wanted to rephrase this, because I feel like there were limitations for me, especially tied to educational opportunities that I maybe turned down because I wasn't confident that I had the skill set to do it. So I also asked the question of, did you say yes to something that you wouldn't normally do because you did not think you had the skill set for it? There have been times I have been volunteered for things and all I can look at them is like, really? That's what you're gonna go with? So I usually do say yes, but I always have that questioning doubt of, are we reading from the same page of music? Because that doesn't seem to make sense. Or you can also look at it from, did you take an opportunity to teach something that you learned to someone else? Because I feel like education and teaching certainly goes hand in hand, and you can be on the receiving end, or you can step out of your comfort zone and teach it, because the best way to learn something is to teach it. And so I dove a little bit deeper into this, where it's like, I truly appreciate the structure of formal education. I also, as I was talking to Jen about this beforehand, is I realized that I leaned very heavily on that kind of formal education and structure because I didn't have the confidence that people would believe that I knew what I was talking about without the printed degree. So I found that kind of an interesting thing that I fell into, because it's not that I'm lacking in confidence. I just feel like I have to validate that. So that's one of those things that I always felt like I want to achieve. So I benefited from an undergrad degree. I benefited from a master's degree, as well as I'm currently working on an MBA. But I also feel like it's that challenge to yourself and others, that maybe it's just kind of diving a little bit deeper into an article or one of those things. And I think it's a really kind of an open-ended way to do education. So I'm going to give you some time to work on this, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I do apologize for the visitors that we had. I feel like it wouldn't be in October without some sort of spooky Zoom bombers, but we took care of it. I do apologize for that. But we are here. We're back in focus, talking about all of the amazing opportunities that you all have taken under either the formal education route or even just kind of learning a new skill set. I feel like even just that simple step of, if you hear something or read an article or, a random fact, and that you kind of take that extra step to either Google it a little bit more, read an additional article on it, read another book on it, learn something else. I think it's amazing. So I think it's one of those that we do continue to incorporate it, whether it's again on that kind of very formalized type of curriculum, or even again, just waking up and trying to learn something new every day, I think is really great. And also you guys are amazingly impressive, and the fact that it is never too late to start something, and even taking those kind of amazing like leaps of faith in the kind of education category, which I can't help but be thoroughly impressed with. So thank you everybody for sharing. We are now going to move to page 30 in your October journal. And so this is the opportunity to do the rosebud thorn exercise, which I think is a really good way to see the kind of highs and lows and everything in between of the week that you just had. Because sometimes we would tend to dwell on maybe the more negative things, but realize you actually had a lot more positive things going on. But I think it's another one of those of just kind of being in the moment that you tend to lose a little bit of perspective on kind of where it falls on that roller coaster of the week. So being able to step back, zoom out a little bit, and look at it from this, does give us an opportunity to celebrate a rose, which is a win or a highlight, something that went well, something that made you smile, something that made you happy. I think we need to take a little bit more, I've been using buds kind of a little bit as a throwaway when I kind of go through these things. And so giving buds a little bit more of an opportunity, because it is an emerging opportunity. So maybe I need to kind of cultivate those a little bit more. So using that this month is kind of diving a little bit more into the buds instead of just kind of random things that I feel like it's been recently. And then the thorn is again to acknowledge something that maybe didn't go so well. It was something negative, or something that was a challenge, or something that's just taking up a little bit too much space in your mind. But the opportunity to look at from this perspective is you can then use it, are these things that I want to start, stop, and continue? Or how can I kind of build on some of these roses or buds into the next week by how I set up my weekly pages? So for me in particular, a highlight this week, I went and got my hair cut and colored yesterday, so it always makes me a little happy, a little lighter, and it always looks great. I know it's really dark, but you can't see it. It looks great. I'm pleased with it. The bud and the thorn kind of go hand in hand, so I'm going to talk about the thorn first. I have just been in a really weird headspace. I don't know if there's something in the air, or it's just the time of year, or just that weird seasonal transition. But I have not really been focusing. I have been kind of, I kind of need to be like locked maybe in a room and told to like sort yourself out, because I'm so up in my head. It's painfully impacting a lot of random things. So that's kind of been my thorn of the week, is I just can't quite get out of my head, and it's distracting, and I'm just in one of those moods. I was telling Jen that I was in just one of those moods as I come into this meeting, which I think is also really great because it makes me happy coming into this. But I was like, I'm in a mood, and I've been in a mood for a couple days now. But that leads into my bud, because I have a slightly quieter week than usual. So I need to sit with myself, and we need to sort ourselves out. We need to talk about it, so that I can kind of move past it. But I would love to hear your rosebud thorns in the chat if you wish to share them, but I'm going to give you some time to work on that. Again, we're on page 30 in your October journal to celebrate those wins, acknowledge those emerging opportunities, as well as maybe get a little bit support, or just throw it out into the universe, something that wasn't going well when it comes to thorns. And we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your rosebud thorns in the chat. Sometimes just the ability to put it, the power of pen to paper, even just chatting it into a chat, I feel like is definitely a little bit on the therapeutic side of, being able to acknowledge the highs and the lows and everything in between. I feel like it does become a little bit of a release so that I don't have to worry about it as much. And I do appreciate the fact that, we have this platform to kind of certainly do that, because even I feel a lot better saying that I'm just in a weird headspace. It's where it is, and I'll figure it out. But thank you, everybody, for sharing it. It does look like, again, we have certainly some medical journeys, which are always tricky, so sending the extra love and support for those. But you guys have some amazing roses that we can certainly celebrate. And I do like the activity here, where it is kind of a litmus test. Were you able to come up with the rose very quickly? Were you able to come up with the thorn far too quickly, and you had a little too many of those? So it's kind of finding that balance, because again, there's going to be something good, there's going to be something bad each week. So it's striking that balance and being able to acknowledge both at the same time. So maybe if you had a little bit of a more weighted seesaw, or weighted on the scales in a little bit particular direction, you can always repurpose one of the sections in the weekly pages to help support that, so we can either kind of write those scales a little bit more, or find an opportunity to kind of celebrate, or even add a little bit more of that positive optimism into it as we kind of acknowledge the previous week and moving into the next week. So with that being said, we're going to move into the weekly planner setups. So now we're going to be on page 32 and 33 in your journal. And what I'll do is I will give some examples, and then I will go off camera, play some music. So don't worry if you miss an example, we can go back to those slides as we go. Just let us know what slides you want to see. And this is also your kind of permission to do what you need. Sometimes what you need is exactly what is written in the journal, and sometimes what you need is completely repurposing, getting out that whiteout, getting out that washi tape, and going completely over it because you want to go in a very different direction. Either way, you don't need permission to do those. If you get a little bit stuck of where do I need to go or what do I need to do, I always ask myself, what do I need this week? How do I need to support myself for this week? Because a lot of times when we maybe aren't as engaged with our journal, I feel like it's because I thought I needed to do something else, when really I should have just kind of started over and changed it and edited it, because what I needed was probably what I didn't think I need, which I know sounds a little strange, but a lot of times I have found that if it's not as effective, it was probably not what I needed that week. And each week looks different, so the ability to start anew each week is really awesome. So we're going to start at the top of page 32 with This Week I Want to Feel. I definitely have a little bit of an analytical approach to things. So I always try to find a way to come back to an equilibrium, or what is my end goal for the week. So I will ask myself, how do I want to feel this time next week? So as I'm experiencing those roses and the buds and the thorns of the week, I can always come back to, this is what I want my week to look like. This is how I want to feel. And you can use that by either a particular word, a particular combination of words. Maybe it's less of something, more of something. Maybe it's multiple words per day. Maybe it's your word of the year that is really resonating. Maybe it's the same word that you used last week and the week before, or maybe you've kind of moved more into this approach of, I want to have a word of the month. That is something that you can kind of then structure and build the rest of the pages around. So we love all of these different examples. The iconography is there. Stickers, I think, are an amazing vibe to do that. And it may not be a word, maybe it is a combination of, maybe it's a phrase, maybe it's a quote, or again, I know summer is a little bit over, but I'm not ready to give it up. Maybe it's as happy and relaxed as the giraffe is on a floaty. I feel like it's those kind of vibes. So I'm going to turn on some music. Put in the chat if you want how you want to feel this time next week, because I just love the inspiring optimism that this particular section brings. So let's hear how you want your week to feel this time next. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And like I said, I love the intentional optimism that just flows through the chat as everyone throws in the words of the week that they want to do. It is definitely just like that added motivation and excitement. Because again, you all bring so much inspiration to these chats and the socials that just make them really magical. So now that we've established how we want to feel this time next week, we're still going to be on page 32, but we're now going to look at our weekly major three goals, but they could be weekly minor three goals. They could just be weekly goals. They could be multiple goals, a couple different ones. Don't let the kind of wording intimidate you. But for me in particular, the way I approach these three goals, these are the kind of big emotional or mental reminders that I need to give myself so that I can feel the way I want to feel this time next week. If you've been to any of the socials with Bailey, she would call these kind of the crunchy feelings. But a couple other ways to approach this is, again, maybe you just have the three things that you want to do. Maybe it is some stickers. Maybe it's a category. You have a professional goal, a mind goal, a body goal. Maybe it's a mind, body, and soul goal. Maybe these are tied directly with how you want to feel this time next year or next week. Again, we still like the alliterations of productive, peaceful, and powerful. Those are those goals. Same thing with the frog, the fun, and the fierce. You'll see a theme with a bingo boards. We love that dopamine kind of rush of gamifying a lot of these things. Or you'll see kind of that combination of tying the weekly goals directly to the weekly to-dos. So those are the exact things that you need to do in order to support those weekly goals. Someone also broke it down into something they want to do in the early part of the day, the midday, and the evening. And then again, we have some other alliterations with that learn, leap into, and let go. Maybe this is more of your morning self-care system. Maybe it's a stop goal, things you want to stop, things you don't want to do. And same thing with maybe you want to completely switch the sections in general. Maybe this is where your weekly to-dos are because you like the grid pattern versus the goals, which is that blank space. So we have the opportunity to look at those weekly affirmations. I'm also going to tie in the weekly to-dos because like I said, I feel like these kind of go hand in hand with those things. And so the to-dos, they can be maybe it's a to-do list or a to-da list. I am a to-da fan. I like to kind of use that approach because at the end of the day, whether it's a to-do or a to-da, it is to-done, which is what we're going for. But then there are other times that this particular section for me definitely changes a lot because I will definitely need to bring in some of those Eisenhower matrix techniques, which is the do, decide, delegate, or delete. And a lot of that is really, it just helps you kind of prioritize that to-do list. For me in particular, I do find delegation a little hard. I live alone, so there really isn't anybody that I can delegate to, but I certainly try to find those opportunities. And that's maybe I'm just too tired and I can't be bothered to cook dinner or clean or any of those things. So I will delegate that out to the closest restaurant of my choosing. And same thing with delete. I never delete anything. I don't drop anything either. I will delay it because at the end of the day, if it's on a to-do list, it needs to get done, but maybe it doesn't need to get done today. And then again, you can incorporate some of that, the bingo board mentality or attach some of those goals to support that. Same thing with the Pomodoro technique. That's a great way to tackle some of those larger tasks by breaking it down into smaller pieces. But you can also repurpose these with just, again, a reprioritization of your to-do list. So maybe it's just calling them something different. Maybe it's a call, an errands, a follow-up, a schedule. Maybe it's breaking it down into a needs and a wants. Or maybe it's a don't do this instead, or even just a place to put those happy thoughts. Maybe you need to break it down into work and personal under the kind of opportunity and even the educational opportunity. Maybe it's those aha moments, or maybe it's just your weekly wins. But either way, we would certainly love to hear how you tackle your weekly goals and your to-do list, and if you connect those or if you keep those separately. But again, take a big deep breath, kind of sort through what you need this week, ask yourself that, and then you can start putting those pieces together with our end goal being how you want to feel this time next week. So we'll see you soon. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I appreciated seeing and hearing the different ways that you approach this, but also the reasons why you kind of do this. I feel like there's nothing more powerful than kind of asking yourself and giving your the opportunity of kind of why are you moving in this direction to kind of help compound that idea. And then I saw that someone was also maybe looking into potentially using a dread list. This would be a great kind of way to incorporate it into the weekly to-dos. Just kind of write down again, taking some of those things out of your head and using that power of pen to paper, putting it in there so you can look at it. So then maybe it's something that you can then either throw into an Eisenhower matrix or any sort of prioritization tool, or even just getting it out of there and into here so that it can be something that you can turn into a little bit actionable. To be fair, I think that actually may be what I need to do this week to kind of get out of my head a little bit. But again, you guys provide such amazing inspiration, not only through your examples, but through the conversations in the chat about how you approach this, because I feel like there's something magical of like, you're going to find someone that connects on that wavelength. And it may be that like aha moment that you need to kind of unlock the pages or the sections for this week. So we're still on page 32, but now at the bottom where we're going to that habit and activity tracker, which what I like about this, it can definitely go hand in hand with the weekly habits here as well as the monthly habits. For me in particular, the monthly habits are the things that I want to do every single day. I am a creature of habits, so then I carry over those same usually three things, and that's move, read, and journal, and I add the lens of reality to it, and that's based on what type of week I have. Is it going to be like a heavy workload? Is it going to be a traveling week or vacation? Or is the weather not going to be quite as kind of what I'm looking for? So I kind of overlay that because that then helps me manage what type of expectations I can have around those habits and activities. But here are a couple other different approaches for that. Maybe these are habits and activities that you want to stop. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method is a really great one. And at the same time, you don't have to have a goal. Maybe you just want to cover those up. Or maybe you want to do a little bit of that motivation to kind of hit those type of goals. Or maybe these again are less like kind of tangible activities and more just reminders to kind of be kind to yourself, accept yourself, get enough sleep. Or maybe you are headed on vacation or you have someone visiting and you want to be a little bit more present. Throw those stickers on there and don't worry about those habities until you get back. What I also like is that you can potentially break these up into what would be the traditional work week versus the weekends, because we know that those days are going to look a little bit different. And same thing is, just because there are 5 different lines there does not mean you need to have 5 different habits and activities to track. Maybe it's just 2, maybe it's 3, maybe you're coming off of not feeling well and it is just to keep getting better. What I also like is that you can use this as kind of almost like a cheat sheet to how you can approach your journal. So maybe one of your habits and activities is to check in with your intentions on earlier pages. Maybe it's to work on a journal prompt. Maybe it's to take 10 minutes to work on the coloring page. You can always kind of give yourself those reminders in there, which is exactly what this tool is supposed to help with. And then when in doubt, here again, some other, I love the iconography. I still have a visual element. So I loved the Healthy Habits Daily Countdown. So you can incorporate some of these into that maybe 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 pattern. Also acknowledging that as we move into those fall and winter months, as the days get shorter, it gets a little bit darker. Maybe you're in just kind of one of those lonely days. So here are some ideas to kind of bring you out of that little bit of funk. And as I said, I love the iconography that each of these bring, especially that we have an amazing bingo board that you can create. So here are some fun October to-dos. So maybe these could be a fun habit or activity to add each week as we go into that. But I would love to hear what habits and activities you are working on so that you can feel the way you want to feel this time next week. So we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I loved seeing all of the habits and activities that you're working on, but also kind of the creative ways of tying this into the other sections of the journal. Someone mentioned that they were gonna put a reminder to do one of their bingo options on the bingo boards, which I think is really, really great. So I love the idea of being able to utilize this not only for the habits and activities that you're wanting to track, but being able to give yourself that little bit of boost or that little bit of reminder to kind of continue to stay engaged with the journal as you go through the week. Because I definitely know there are weeks that I am definitely on point. I am doing everything pretty diligently. And then there are other weeks that I probably couldn't even tell you where my journal is at the moment. But I feel like it's one of those that I think it's a great reminder, because at the end of the day, these sections should be tools in your tool belt that helps you on that self-care journey. So now we're going to flip over to page 33, which I call the B-side, because again, I'm a big music fan, so I treat it as the B-side of a record where I don't listen to it all the time, but when I do, there are some amazing gems that I genuinely use. But I just realized that I was certainly getting very frustrated with myself because I wasn't quite utilizing this to the same extent that I needed to. So for me, this is the B-side, and so I love that it can be repurposed, but I also, again, super impressed when it's used exactly as written, because sometimes that's what you need. So I'm going to go through this kind of entire page, and then we'll go back through all those examples when I go off camera. So for the meal plan, this can absolutely be used exactly as designed with that meal plan component, because maybe it's one of those that you plan for, or maybe it's something that you track in real time because you're on some sort of healthcare journey working with a professional, so you can track some of those intakes. I know I've done it when I have some of my flares with my autoimmune disease, just so that I can make sure that I'm tracking and not unnecessarily triggering it. But a couple other ways to repurpose it is for one good thing. Again, if you have a little bit of trouble maybe finding some of those roses, you can use it for the one good thing. Maybe this is more where your to-do list lives, because it's overlaid with some of those meetings or appointments. And then another couple example is the kind of meal plan for the soul, which I like. So diving a little bit more into those journal prompts, and you can either kind of pre-prompt those, or there's a really great feature in the app that gives you a prompt for the day that you can always incorporate. The one that was under trust was one of our previous monthly themes. So they actually tied those journal prompts into embracing kind of an exploring trust. So you can certainly celebrate some of the opportunities that you had, or maybe kind of use it to brainstorm some of the opportunities that you can create. Since in order, if we go back to that quote at the beginning, turn opportunity into action. Or again, maybe it's just kind of highlighting the priorities that you wanted to do. Again, a health tracker is also a great place to put those wonderful affirmations that you see in the app. Same thing with another way to incorporate that theme is, how did I embrace opportunity today? Someone did mention that they use it as a kind of packing list or a wardrobe planner. I work from home, so being able to use it as a clothing planner so that I don't wear the same things every day is awesome. I liked the idea of, how did you fill your cup today? So you can kind of celebrate some of those there, or even, how did you find your happy this week? We also have some amazingly creative individuals that create a haiku each day, or maybe you just kind of want to pick a random word of the day to either celebrate it or embrace it, or even kind of journal on it on the weekly spread pages, but it's an opportunity to do it that way. Or maybe this is kind of your end of day checklist. What are the things that you need to get done today? Then as we shift into that mind body health plan, these can again kind of go hand in hand, and they could either be something that maybe you schedule, or maybe this is something that you can do a little bit in real time. And I love that Nathania's in here, because I adore her feel and need T-chart, where she asks herself how she's feeling, so what does she need in order to embrace that. It's definitely one of my favorites, and just like the elegant simplicity of how you can focus on to those mind body health checks, because a lot of those things just don't get done, or you think you're doing it and you're just kind of phoning it in. Maybe this is where your highlight of the day lives. Maybe it's an unplug for an hour, what you're going to do that. Maybe it is just the reminder to observe and not absorb. Maybe you need to focus on those 7 types of rest. Maybe you again repurposed it for your routines. You can use it as a reading log. Again, maybe this is where those journal prompts live. And so you can kind of ask yourself those. And then as we move into the shopping list, those again, another great place to repurpose, but that can go hand in hand with that meal plan. But as you see, this is a great spot for those bingo boards. You name the theme and it probably can be turned into a bingo board. I love the boring stuff bingo, the just for fun, celebrate the wins. I know Jen has used it as a birthday bingo, so I saw that we had some October birthdays, but maybe these are some self-care reminders or daily rituals. I think it was Kimberly was looking for mini breaks to kind of do the midday. I like the idea for mini breaks at work. Those were great. Maybe again, these are just to be reminders. Maybe it's a social check-in, especially as we move into the kind of shorter days. Maybe you need to check in with those folks, or you can treat it as a buy and don't buy. But either way, these can certainly all be repurposed, especially with stickers, affirmations. Maybe this is a prayer list. Same thing if you do tarot pulls, all of those things here. So I'm going to give you time to work on this page, but we would love to hear how you're repurposing the pages or if you're using it exactly as intended for what you need this week. But love working on the B side, and we would love to see what other inspiration you guys have. And we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing all of the really amazing ways that you repurpose this. Because again, this should be such an adaptable section because it's a great template, and I am a sucker for a great template. But I think it's also kind of striking that balance of figuring out a way to utilize it for what you need so that you can feel the way you want to feel this time next week. And then you have that very last section on the bottom of page 33, which is the I am loving. So if you want to throw into the chat all of the recent things that you are loving right now, we can end on that kind of inspirational, optimistic outlook that I love to close out my socials with. But we want to certainly appreciate, can you believe that we're done? We've made it, because we would love to continue the conversation in the app if you have it there. So we would love to see your examples, your inspirational pages. Obviously, we use them in the socials, but also to provide some of that help and support in the app as well. And then, as always, Jen is going to start putting some links into the chat, but we still are doing the Refer a Friend program. Definitely look into upgrading to that annual subscription. And then, as always, tell us what you think. We read all of that feedback. It is why we have socials. It's why we have them when we have them, and all the subjects. And even Mayha threw in there earlier the new coaching portion of the app. So you can always ask questions there, and it's great. And then, as always, if you cannot show up to the scheduled ones, we have that YouTube link there with almost over 800 socials. So you can certainly come back and revisit. Participate in socials that you haven't done, as well as see different facilitator perspectives, which is always great. And then, as always, here is my playlist. I will throw the link into the chat for Spotify there. But thank you so much for spending your Sunday evening with us. There are no Sunday scaries here. You guys are going to have an amazing week this week as we kick off the first kind of full week of October. But we hope to see you at future events. You guys have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
As I wake half dead in the same old bed at the dawn of another day, I feel chained and bound to this hopeless town, and I know I must break away. There's a world out there, why does no one care? Are they lost in the games they play? So much they don't see, but there's more to me, and I know I must break away.
Oh, I've been lying, I've been cheating, I've been fooling myself. Instead of fighting, I've been hiding away. I've been running, going nowhere, put my heart on the shelf, and I don't wanna live that way.
Trapped in